Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tosh's Tuesday Takeaway. So this week, I am delighted to welcome onto the show with Ste Walker.
Hey.
You, the lovely Stephanie Chivers, who is, and I'd love you to introduce yourself as well.
So I am a human being, planet Earth, female this time round. I can't speak about the others. I haven't done that work yet. No. All joking aside, I teach people how to stop drinking, taking drugs and start living. And I do that in a number of different ways. So I have online coaching programs, do group coaching, do one-to-one, but also do loads and loads of speaking like this. I'm really passionate about getting out there and sharing good quality information about alcohol and drugs. Although we're just talking about alcohol tonight, although alcohol is a drug, but we'll come on to that.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. And we were also actually, just to bring us on, we were talking on Sunday night about the sort of modern day addictions, and we were talking about social media as well. So addiction is, I think, everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're talking about dating app addiction as well, which we were kind of talking about a little while back as well.
Yeah, I mean, humans, we're little pleasure seekers, aren't we? And there's nothing, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's good to have pleasure in our life. We want more pleasure in our life. It's just making sure that we're not doing that in a way that's problematic for us, or our children, our lives, or our finances, or our mental health. Yeah, and it can easily tip the balance quite easily. Yeah.
Totally. And I think that kind of brings us nicely on. Thank you. Stephanie and I have known each other for about, I don't know, maybe 3 years, maybe 3-4 years now. Yeah. So we've been in the same loop. You've been on a podcast, and that was a great podcast as well. So Stephanie, I'm very, very happy to have on here. We are, aren't we, Steve?
Yeah. First guest.
Amazing.
Woo!
Amazing. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to send you one of these cups, all right, for joining us.
Thank you. So one of the things I think, Steve, you that came up from the group, and also from, I kind of polled a few people today as well, and that was the subject of partners.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah. So I do have a member who's asked me to raise this with you tonight, Steph. They're currently in a relationship where they have the children most of the time, and the partner has contact, but the partner's turning up under the influence of alcohol. Social services are saying that, you know, the parents got responsibility. They don't need to get involved, you know, and so she's trying to weigh up a judgment call every time whether they're fit to actually have the children.
Yeah, really difficult situation that. So yeah, where there's a parent that is, we would call it a protective factor in the trade. So just to give a little bit of my background, I'm not just a random person that stopped drinking and set up my own business. I used to work in treatment services, run treatment services, run a family service, and do a lot of child protection training around parental substance misuse. So it's an area that I'm very familiar with. And also, I used to drink myself, and I got children, and I was a single mum, so I probably was that person, although that was a long time ago. So yeah, where there is a parent that isn't drinking or using, and you know it's deemed that that person is a protective factor, and obviously that person probably has got main custody, then yeah, the visiting parent, if the visiting parent is under the influence, that social care have sort of left you to it, they're not giving you any advice, it's really difficult, isn't it? It's whether you can have a conversation with the other parent when they're not under the influence, whether maybe you need to go to mediation. So ideally what you want to have is you want to have a conversation with the other parent when they're not under the influence about, okay, let's talk about contact with the kids, you know, let's talk about that's going to look like, how that's going to work, you know, what's going to happen if you turn up and you're under the influence. So it's almost like you've got not almost like you have a plan. So you safety plan for the children. So the children come first.
So yeah, I was going to say, you make it about the children. You don't make it about them or you or I or any of that stuff. It's about the children. So really bring the focus back. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about the children, and it's about, is it okay for you to be around these children in this current state? But it's always better to have that conversation when that other parent isn't under the influence. Now, sometimes that's not possible. Maybe that other person drinks all the time or is using all the time. Maybe they're not going to turn up to mediation. Maybe if they do turn up to mediation, they're under the influence, and it makes it all like, I can't have a proper conversation. I would still be tempted to put some terms of engagement in writing as a sort of common courtesy type of thing. Okay, so you're going to come and see the kids once a week. My expectation is when you turn up, you are not heavily under the influence and that you are able to interact with the children. If not, then it's probably not going to be a good idea for you to see them, so you've set that up.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, and you mentioned not heavily under the influence, because obviously you can't just start going nothing if somebody, you've got to be realistic, I guess, haven't you? Steve, would you agree? Do you know? I mean,
yeah, definitely. The other issue with this scenario was the parent driving as well. So
I was going to bring up driving, actually.
Yeah, so this stuff is such a great conversation to have, because so many people are talking about mummy drinking culture and how that's not great and we need to challenge that, and that's brilliant, but actually we need to talk about the children as well. We need to talk about their impact on the children before we even start talking about the other partner. About that other partner, and it's like, we're all clear that driving under the influence isn't okay. I think as a we all agree, don't we?
Totally.
If you have a drink driving conviction, it's like you're a pariah, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I totally get that. But then there's no conversation about, but you are in charge of minors whilst heavily under the influence. It's okay for you to get in a car and drive while you're under the influence. We all know that's bad. But then we're talking about parenting while heavily under the influence. And it's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's about behaviour. So it's, you say, Tosh, it's not about the amount, it's not about talking about abstinence, it's about managing behaviour. And it's also about the age of the children, isn't it? Like, a small child is going to be a very different response as opposed to maybe a teenager who can choose, because a teenager might say, actually, I don't want to spend time with mummy or daddy when they're like that. When I go around there, I don't like it. And they have every right to say that and choose that. And then small child, it might be about safety, mightn't it?
Yeah, so this for me, for me, at what you just said, how then do you have a conversation? I mean, obviously, because I'm going to put this out with the other parent if the children are now saying, actually, I don't want to. I mean, that's just kind of another level, isn't it, of potential upset.
Yeah, I mean, that really
conflict as well. It's like that
really does depend on the age of the child, the relationship with the child, with the other parent, and also your relationship, because some teenage children they'll be strong enough in themselves, they'll be managing that relationship, and they'll be able to say, actually, I'm busy, I don't want to see you for a while, or whatever, which is actually really common with teenagers. There doesn't need to be anything wrong, does there? A teenager could drop off the radar for any random reason.
They might just actually not want to get out of bed at all.
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't have to be anything wrong, does there?
I was surprised this morning. My daughter's not been so well. And usually I say, oh, it's all right, I can have a day off school. But she said, no, Dad, I need you to get ready. I need to get to school because I've got PE. And I'm like, what?
Oh, how old is she?
13.
She is 13, that's right. Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, well, whilst it happens, unless she's a full sporty girl and sticks with it, and that's, So the teenagers. So how then? What about? Okay, I'm just firing questions in. It was we're kind of talking about. And just this is like this is a show. We haven't pre-planned anything. We're having a conversation. So, what about if one parent what is the scenario around one parent asking the children to spy on daddy or mummy? Or you can't do that, can you?
No, you can't. You have, like you were saying before, situation, you always have to think about the children.
Yeah.
The children are not pawns in some of revenge game, or focusing on what they're doing, what they're not doing. If you're not together, your focus is the children and the children, and what do those children need. And actually those children need a relationship with both parents. Now, it is really tricky if one parent is using, because for some children, depending on the behaviour around the using, because some people can use and function-ish, and some people don't, so it is a very, very individual thing. And actually, for some children, that relationship will still be important, even if dad is using, which is unpopular when you work with social workers when you say that. But what we know is children do better when they have relationships with their parents. We know that. And there is always a way to manage that relationship.
So we say don't ask your children to spy. Don't put them in that position where they have to start spying. But it's a kind of a hard one, because if you know your children are going away for the weekend and at some point, mum or dad might put them in the car, and you're sitting there at the weekend, over the weekend thinking, oh my God, it's time to really think and get quite angry about it as well. So it's about sort of managing. It's a real minefield.
I think the only way I can think, just going off my time in social work, is getting a grandparent to supervise the contact if you're that concerned.
Really good idea.
Yeah. It's about managing risk, isn't it? It's about safety. It's about managing risk, and there are so many variables, because actually the bottom line is, if you genuinely believe that your child is getting into a car where somebody isn't fit to drive, that is a child protection risk. Bottom line, that's what it is. So actually there needs to be a conversation, and if you can't have a conversation because there's been a relationship breakdown, then that's a conversation maybe with social care, or with a grandparent, or whatever you need to do. Again, it's dependent on the age of the child. I've got to say, I probably wouldn't let my children are grown up now, but I wouldn't let my child get in a car with somebody that I knowingly knew they were under the influence. I don't think any parent would say that. You would, no, sorry, or I'll take the child, or let's
I'll drop the children off and pick them up. And and if you've got to swallow it up for a bit until it's all sorted out, you've got a plan in place, that's what you have to do, because as we've said, it's about the children.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you, that's really helpful. And the other thing I think we were going to talk about is, lockdown has happened. I know that I could hear the recycling vans on a Thursday morning. It was like a pub, like collection of bottles. Everybody was drinking so much. Obviously not so much. Oh, I don't know. Maybe people are now. But if you feel, your face says it all. If you're worrying and you're a single parent, and you're, what are the signs that because we kind of read stuff, can you just give us like the signs that maybe you just need to maybe have a conversation with somebody, or just to watch out, or just, the steps if you are finding yourself sitting at home lonely, feeling really kind of, and especially isolation, self-isolation as well, what would you suggest are the flags that maybe you're drinking so much, and maybe if you can rein it in, or maybe where to get some help? And we could put some links as well in the show notes about places to get help.
Yeah. So again, this is difficult because different amounts are a problem for different people. So, somebody can be sat at home having a couple of glasses of wine every night, and that might be a problem for them, but it might not be a problem for somebody else, and also it depends on how big your glasses of wine are.
Some of them are big.
Yeah, they are. So it's a very individual thing. What I would say to you is, alcohol is a drug. Please see it as a drug. We say alcohol drugs, but actually alcohol is a drug. It is, and it's a very harmful drug. So,
Can I just interrupt? Somebody once
Yeah.
said that if alcohol was discovered today, it would be classified as a Class A drug.
Yes.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So alcohol is one of our most harmful drugs and sits up there with cocaine and heroin. I love to argue it's our most harmful. I'm really happy to do that with anyone because it's a toxin and it's a poison. It's highly addictive, hugely habit forming. So we've got this funny situation going on with alcohol. In fact, our drug laws aren't fit for purpose anyway. So we've got some drugs that are Class A drugs that really aren't that high risk, so it's all of it's a bit rubbish, really, to be honest. So you have to sort of educate yourself. So the first thing is really to educate yourself about alcohol, but it's also to be honest with yourself about your drinking. Are you drinking every day? How much do you drink? Why do you drink? Is it a habit? Are you using it as a crutch? Are you using it because you're bored? Is it comfort? Are you filling a gap? Are you lonely, sad, stressed? Using it to relax, using it to sleep? Be honest with yourself about how you're using alcohol. So I talk about appropriate use of the drug. So think, you're at a festival and you smoke a spliff or have a hash cake. You're at a spiritual event, you do acid. You go to a dance event, you go E. Not with your children. So sort of like back to what we were talking about before. So,
well, if you've got teenagers, they're probably all off doing it anyway. So
I know. I was just thinking, there's already another conversation about that. I know. Teenagers and drug use, that's a whole other conversation. But one I do like to have, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, and with alcohol is a social lubricant, isn't it? The one thing to say about alcohol is it's a social lubricant. It's good for that. So it's built as a drug to have an occasional drink socially. So at a wedding with friends, in a pub, in the good old days when we were allowed to socialise, that type of stuff.
It feels such a long time ago.
I know. Don't talk about that. No. So it's like, okay, so appropriate use of the drug. So appropriate use of alcohol is to use it as a social lubricant and as an occasional thing. Are you using alcohol in that way? That's the first question. Quite often when people come into my world, they're drinking daily, or they're drinking 3 or 4 times a week, or they're binge drinking at the weekends. They're drinking more than an occasional drink, a glass of wine every couple of weeks. So it's about educating yourself and being honest with yourself about your drinking. And then also it's about the impact of your drinking. Is it impacting sleep? Are you anxious? Are you depressed? Do you know about units? Are you over the limit when you're driving the kids in the morning? All this type of stuff.
And are you playing catch up at the beginning of the day from the moment you wake up because you've had a couple of glasses or whatever amount it is that is going to affect you? So, and that impacts on your relationship with your children, lack of patience in the morning, getting out, all that stuff. Yeah.
It impacts on so much. It impacts. And what's interesting is, you don't have to have a problem with alcohol to take a break. In fact, as you know, I love to encourage anybody to take a break from alcohol so they can just see what it's like on the other side.
It's interesting.
Just for fun. Do 30 days. You won't die. You won't spontaneously combust.
Which brings us on to Stoptober.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if any of our listeners or, viewers have done Stoptober. But it's a month, certainly in the UK, where we are all encouraged to take a break from alcohol. And I think one of the reasons why we put this program on halfway through October is that it's a bit like starting a diary in January. If you suddenly got to do it for the whole thing, you just sort of give up after a few days and then you beat yourself up because you can't really do it. And we thought maybe we could encourage, and with, Steph's thoughts on this, maybe just do it for the last week if you haven't been able to do it up and
anything. Oh my god, I'm
actually
a fan of any alcohol-free day.
It's never too late. I think we think once we've missed that 1st of October, maybe we had a big birthday party in the first week and we couldn't stop, so we go, we'll wait till next year. It's actually no, you still got a week left, and if you want to feel good about yourself, and it's probably a very good way of helping you feel better about yourself if you are feeling anxious, is actually maybe just take a break for a week and just see what happens. So absolutely. Any top tips for taking a break?
Ooh, yeah. So loads of them. So I recommend that anybody reduce or take a break, no matter what. The only sort of caveat to that, and I need to say, is that alcohol is a physically addictive drug. So if you are drinking significant amounts daily or significant amounts in a binge, if you stop suddenly, you can go into withdrawal, and withdrawal can be fatal. Now, I can't give you exact amounts because it's not an exact science, but as a general sort of, so for a woman, 18 units a day, I would be quite concerned about that. But I have met women that are drinking less with withdrawal, but it's unusual.
A day or a week?
A day.
Oh,
18,
God.
so 2 bottles of wine, yeah, which is not uncommon. I was a 2 bottle of wine a day drinker many years ago. And then it's the same with people sort of drinking in a binge, and with men, sort of around 24 units.
Yeah.
Men can sort of handle, their bodies can handle a bit more alcohol than women. But again, there's anomalies. So don't take that as a, that's what Stephanie says, that's the case. If you think you have a physical addiction to alcohol, please either talk to someone like myself, an alcohol professional, or speak to a doctor and get advice before you embark on any reduction program. Sorry, I've got to, it's really important because people die.
Yeah, no, very much so. And actually, you know, and making that first call as well, just know that people are not there to judge you. They're not there to think you're a failure because you pick up the phone and ask for help. Steve, have you got anything to add to this as well?
Yeah, I've been around me. I worked for the probation service, and I had quite a few alcohol offenders, and one of the tips that they gave me, not the offenders, my probation management, I did learn a lot off the offenders actually.
Yeah.
But no, if you've got an alcohol problem, obviously, you can't just stop. You've got to gradually. So before you went, so let's say it was me, before you went out on your night out, you do this thinking skills approach. So you plan how many drinks you're going to have. And if it was me, I was going to have 6 pints. I'd have £6 coins in my left pocket. And then every time I have a pint, I put £1 coin into my right pocket. And then once I've got to the end of my 6, I'm supposed to stop. That's the plan. The other option is don't.
But what if you got to pint number 5 and you started taking them out by mistake because you're a bit drunk?
I was going to say, it's all over after the third one, isn't it?
Yeah, there is that problem. There is the, which pocket was it? I can't
That would
remember.
be me.
But surprisingly, it does work with some people, not everybody, but and then obviously don't take your bank cards out so you can't overspend. You can restrict yourself straight away. And I actually said to Tosh, just remembered, and I'm going to be dead honest now in front of everyone. I had an addiction to gambling, quite serious, and this was after my separation. It was my way of dealing with my separation. And what's remarkable with gambling is you can just go and buy yourself from the casino. You can buy yourself online. And I couldn't get in anywhere. Once I had signed that signature, no one had let me in for 12 months. But you can't do that with alcohol.
You can take a medication called anti-abuse, which is fairly severe, and most doctors don't like prescribing it. That actually means you'd be very, very ill if you drank. Now, for some people, that works. It really does depend on your personality. If you're a risk taker, it won't work. And then you're Russian roulette. You're playing Russian roulette if you're drinking anyway to that level, and lots of GPs won't. So there are, I think there's always these funny little things coming out with alcohol, but yeah, the anti-abuse is the closest thing I've ever seen, and you can have that in an implant as well. They do that in Poland. So in Poland, it's very different over there, the culture. So they have drink tanks. So if you're found sort of heavily under the influence, then you'll be taken and detoxed and then enforced implant with anti-abuse, which means you can't drink on it.
Wow. And does it work, just out of interest?
I don't know if it does. I can remember years ago, my manager went over there to check out what they were doing and see if there was any learnings. I don't think there were any learnings because we didn't implement anything. And then we had quite a few, there was quite a large Eastern European community where I worked. So they used to come in and ask for support, and they'd say detox me and implant me, and I'd be like, no, it doesn't work like that in the UK. We need to talk about it, and they couldn't talk about it. Because they were so used to solving their problem in that way. It's really frustrating, because it's like, you can't get detox in the UK for love or money.
No, it doesn't actually get to the root of the problem, does it?
No.
But can you imagine? So
but it's interesting, isn't it? It's that. So for some personalities that will work, yeah. But if you are just wanting to make changes to your drinking, there are a number of things that you can do. So I would start with educating yourself. My favourite book for educating yourself is Professor David Nutt's book, Drink. It's very heavy on science, but it's the best factual book. There's a lot of books out there, but this is the one that you want to read if you want to read about facts. So you will be educated about alcohol. Then you'll be making an informed choice, which is really important that you do that. The other thing is you can lower the percentage of what you're drinking. So look at what you're drinking and look at the percentage. So most wines are sort of like 12 to 14%. You can get some 7% wines, you can get some 5% wines, and that significantly reduces your units. You know, like we're playing a game with your head, you can use... Sorry, Steve, you can say something.
So yeah, Stephanie, a lot of people aren't very educated on alcohol, so can you explain the percentages? What would be a healthy percentage to drink?
There is no healthy percentage to drink.
Okay.
There is no safe amount. There is no safe amount. The government recommended guidelines are guidelines. There's not, there isn't. I mean, so government recommended guidelines, that's a good point actually, 14 units a week. So 14 units a week is a bottle and a half of wine. Now, the idea isn't that you save up your bottle and a half of wine and drink that in one night. That's not great, because then you're binge drinking, and that's not good for your body either. So the idea is that you have government guideline advice is at least 2 alcohol-free days. I want you to have more than 2 alcohol-free days a week, but I would. But if you're having 2 alcohol-free days and drinking 14 units and you're drinking responsibly, that's not really going to be an issue, to be honest. And
actually feel good about the fact that you can have a couple of days off as well. So really kind of acknowledge that you're doing this. And maybe that's how people, you know, if you're feeling like you might be drinking too much, or you're a little bit upset with yourself and you're beating yourself up because you're turning to alcohol and you know what, just before we kind of called time on a marriage, I was drinking a lot, and I did it for all the wrong reasons, and I hated myself every single morning. I woke up and it was just a mess, and it would just make me feel terrible, and it just didn't do anything for my mental health either. But actually just taking a couple of days off is, you know, it's a start.
Is this one of your days off, Tosh?
What are you, 5 a day?
This is where the halo drops, and I go, every day is a day off. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I am actually really, really good, and I can kind of drop off for 3 months. And, you know, I think I went to a family wedding, and I remember everybody was like, yeah, Josh, come and have a beer. And I was not, and I decided to stop drinking. And it was so weird. It was the weirdest experience. And you just think, oh my goodness, and people just get steadily drunker and drunker, and you just go, oh my God, where am I? And they go on, have a drink. What's the matter with you? And I'm like, actually, you know what? I'm doing all right, thank you. And, you know, you're not staggering around the dance floor. Your moves are a little bit, you know, a bit better. Not that anybody can notice because they're all drunk, but anyway.
Yeah, I highly recommend that so if you sort of think that you're drinking a little bit too much and you want to mix it up a bit, it's like, are you using alcohol to socialize every time? Okay, mix it and socialize sometimes without alcohol. Like, it won't kill you. It's just like, it's mixing things up and doing it differently. If you use alcohol to go to sleep, which actually won't help you sleep, but that's another story, you know, make sure that you learn how to sleep without alcohol. If you use alcohol to relax, learn how to relax without it. If you use it for dating, you know, that's a classic one, isn't it? And some coffee dates, or do some different dates without alcohol. It's like, just pay attention and be honest with yourself. Is alcohol a figure in all these things? And if it is, then just mix it up a little bit. So it's not all about alcohol.
Another really good tip for all these young binge drinkers and lads. I mean, I'd class myself as a lad back in the day. There was 12 of us. I was the ringleader, and still am now.
Not you.
I thought he was going to say I was 12. I was like, oh, it's taking another turn.
Ex-holiday rep as well, so I had it all going on. But what I used to do, as I realised I was drinking too much, is that peer pressure amongst men to keep up with the mates. And then I don't know why I didn't think of it earlier, but one day it just dawned on me, go to the bar and order a shandy and down it in front of the lads, and they don't realise I'm either drinking. And that's how I've been working. I've actually given my secret away now to James.
We can talk about this on Sunday. We'll have a little chit chat about this one.
But no, it's a good idea. If you feel peer pressured, just buy some shandies and your mates won't even notice.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's lots of drinks, isn't there, that look like, so a Coke can be anything.
Yeah.
Lemonade can be anything.
Amazing, thank you. Right, okay, so we could talk all night and it would be lovely to get you back. Stephanie, do you want to quickly tell us where we can find you, and we'll just put our details on as well. So
yeah, I'll send you my link. So Stephanie Chivers, if you Google me, I am everywhere. So you will find me. Facebook.
I love that.
YouTube. Yeah, so that's the easiest way to find me, but I'll send you some links. Anyway.
Thank you so much. And also amazing. So you can follow us on single.parents.united on Instagram. We're here on Single Parents United on YouTube. Steve, have you got anything to finish with?
Yeah, if you want to Google me, you won't find me anywhere.
Brilliant. I don't want to be found.